Hello friends, welcome to S. Kumar IS, and we were studying political science, and in political science particularly we came till John Locke. In the last class we were studying about John Locke, liberalism, how he is called the father of liberalism, and today we will complete the remaining part of John Locke. So without much delay आज की कथा को शुरू करते हैं. We just studied in nutshell that liberalism, what does it basically means? Liberalism represents democracy, rights, rule of law, representative government, right to property, and so on. And then we saw that how John Locke belonged to the time of glorious revolution, which shaped his views for human nature, and he was also the scholar of social contract theory. Then liberalism is related to, already we know that liberty, rights, democracy. He was a scholar of bourgeois class. He supported capitalism. Capitalism is not equal to liberalism because capitalism may be democratic, it may be fascist, it may be state controlled, and so on. And then we saw the comparison between Hobbes and Locke, and we saw that Hobbes took the pessimistic view of human nature, and that's how he develops his social contract theory. And then we saw that freedom versus liberty, only Karl Marx and Hannah Arendt, they give the different views of freedom and liberty. Otherwise, all the scholars use them in the same context. Then we saw the Article 19 and 21 of the Indian Constitution. Then we saw due process of law and procedure established by law. How the liberal thoughts and liberal scholars, they are shaping the polity of the world, and how they are influencing the constitutions in particular of different countries. John Locke had direct influence on American Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the natural rights, the preamble, whatever rights are spoken in the American Constitution, they more or less have influenced by the works of John Locke, especially his theory of natural rights. So we saw John Locke as a thinker. He was the scholar of possessive individualism because he put so much pressure on the individualistic, uh, like in for the individuals. He basically says that individuals should be provided with maximum rights, absolute right to property, and uh, he also calls human nature utilitarian. He is also called the scholar of utilitarianism, which is against the Gandhi's view of state, like Gandhian socialism. It's quite opposite to that. Then we saw that he follows the social contract tradition. And then we saw the works of John Locke, Two Treatises of Civil Government, in which he criticizes Filmer and Filmer in general, and his book Patriarcha in particular. And what was the reason? Because Filmer was the leading scholar of that time who supported state absolutism. He says that state is, it's a family of God, and king is the father, and the its citizens are the subjects of the king, and they are like sons and all. And Locke says that citizens are adults, and this idea of family of Filmer is not right. Even if we accept that God created Adam, it was very long ago, and now it is very difficult to ascertain the real here. So in nutshell, he just defies the theory of divine rights and absolute state, and Locke basically focuses more and more on capitalism. We can see it, that how he's kind of supporting capitalism through his theories, because he says that there should be due process of law, there should be absolute right to property, state should not be absolute. So in that way, he is helping the bourgeois indirectly. Then we saw the second treatise of John Locke, Theory of Government, whereas Hobbes gave Theory of State. Locke gave Theory of Government and Theory of Commonwealth. So to build the theory of government, he will use the process of social contract. In social contract, the first thing is defined as human nature. John Locke says that human nature has passions and reasons as balanced, and we saw the enlightened self-interest concept, and to work for the good of others, it's ultimately for his own interest. That's why man will never harm others in life, liberty, health, and possession. So we completed till here. If you have some doubt, please ask in the comment box. I will personally answer them. Now let us complete the remaining part of John Locke. So John Locke says that in state of nature, in the original position, state of nature, there was the state of peace. Why? Because reason and passion are balanced in man. Reason not to harm others in life, liberty, health, and possession. So if any person is not harming the another one, then that society must be very peaceful society. And that's what John Locke exactly says, that the state of nature was the state of mutual assistance and goodwill. Goodwill and mutual assistance. So it was already a society. It was like Hobbes says that it was the state of nature was nasty, brutish, poor, and short. John Locke doesn't say that. John Locke says that there is already a kind of social contract, the first contract between the society to live among themselves peacefully. The Hobbes state of nature was pre-social and pre-political. He says that might is right and power, who is powerful, is right. That was Hobbes' statement. But John Locke says that the social contract, the state of nature, is only pre-political. Why only pre-political? Because there is no formal agreement between the state and the people. And in the state of nature also, man know where his freedom ends and others' freedom starts. Why he knows that? Because he is rational and his passions are controlled. Reason and passions are very much controlled. So he will never harm other person in life, liberty, health, and possession. And as such, there is already a agreement between the society, and it makes civil society. So civil society means a formal agreement within the society. The formal agreement. So Locke's state of nature says that man is already living in a civilized society. The polity is not required. For example, the state is not required. Even in the state of nature, the man is living quite peacefully. So the state of nature is only pre-political. Okay. And Hobbes' state of nature is pre-social also. Why? Because in state of nature, there was no peace, there was no society at all. It was a kind of jungle raj. So we cannot say it's a social, that is not a society at all. So Hobbes' state of nature is pre-social, but Locke's state of nature is not pre-social, because even in the state of nature, the society is existing and it is existing quite peacefully. So Locke says that man is utilitarian. So Locke is also the scholar of utilitarianism. He continues the same tradition. And in state of nature, man has inconveniences. So now the question can be asked that if man is living peacefully, then why there is need of the state at all? Why there is the need of social contract? For that, John Locke says that in state of nature there are inconveniences. Why there are inconveniences? Because there is no common authority. Everyone is lawmaker, everyone is executive, and everyone is the judge in itself. There can be subjectivity in judgment, and there is no no concentration, there is not a single authority. That's why there is no separation of power, and that's why it cannot be peaceful, because separation of power, legislature, executive, and judiciary, we can see in the Montesquieu also, that Montesquieu gave the full theory of the separation of power, and it is also very, very important feature of American Constitution. So we can see that how John Locke kind of influenced the American Constitution. That John Locke says that there should be separation between legislature, executive, and judiciary, and if it is not there, then that is state of nature. In state of nature, everybody is legislature, executive, and judiciary itself, because there is no state. So if there is no not clear boundary between the legislature, executive, and judiciary, what will happen? There will be confusion. Why? Because nobody knows that who will implement the law, who will make the law, and who will adjudicate the law. So therefore it will result in inconvenience. Confusion will result into inconvenience. And Locke also says that though there is reason, but there are also passions in man. Reason and passion are balanced, but it does not mean man does not have passions. So if there are passions, if passion dominates, it will destroy the peace and goodwill. If a person, somebody may have reason, but one person will also have passion, and if he will use the passion, he will destroy the already existing peace and goodwill, and hence the things cannot be left on goodwill. We cannot leave the things on goodwill of the people. That state of nature is always peaceful. It may be peaceful, but it may not be peaceful anytime, because passion may prevail over reason. That's why authority is required for insurance. This is a key word, you should use it in answer writing. John Locke says that this insurance of authority is required for binding contract. The man should be bound to contract, so that there can be formal state, and legislature, executive and judiciary can be separated, and separate functions will be there. There will be no confusion, and that's why no inconvenience. No confusion, no inconvenience. So state is matter of necessity for Hobbes. Hobbes says that state is Leviathan, and without state society cannot exist. But for Locke, the state is just matter of inconvenience, not matter of necessity. Locke says that state is just night watchman state. Man is having reason just to make his life more comfortable, to remove some inconvenience. The state is required. So that's why the Locke delegates only few rights to the state, whereas Hobbes delegates overriding powers to the state, and he calls the state Leviathan. But that's not the case with John Locke. John Locke gives only some rights. Let us see further what John Locke says. So contract in John Locke, Hobbes gives single contract, whereby one contract both society and states are created. But John Locke creates two social contract. Through first contract, civil society is formed, and that is also in the state of nature. We can say state of nature. In state of nature, civil society is formed, and because the people are having reason, so they form the civil society, and we can see it in the part 3 of the Indian Constitution. If we give examples of, just a minute. So part 3 of Indian Constitution, it refers to fundamental rights, that particularly we can say Article 19. So Article 19 is sort of first contract, we can say. Part 3, like many articles are there, those which say that freedom of expression, freedom of movement, profession, and so on. So that shows that, and it also puts the reasonable restriction. The article puts reasonable restriction. So reasonable restriction very much aligns with the theory of John Locke. Reasonable restriction means enlightened self-interest. Enlightened self-interest means a person does not harm other because he thinks that harming other is not in his own self-interest. That's why the peaceful society prevails. So part 3 of Indian Constitution can be very much correlated to the theory of John Locke. Now let us see. Civil society differs from the natural society. Why? Because in civil society there is formal recognition to each other's right. Rights not only left to reason, but guaranteed by the Constitution. So part 3 of Indian Constitution, we can say that it makes a formal civil society, and there is freedom, like freedom is enjoyed, more or less it is enshrined in the constitutions of liberal countries only, and it is ensured through the Constitution. And John Locke says that in theory of government, that the majority gives explicit consent and the minority gives implicit or tacit consent. So that is also a part of criticism of John Locke, that he does not protect minority rights. He does not protect minority rights. Why? Because he says that minority like whatever decision is there of society, there is already implicit tacit consent of the minority. So this is also the point of criticism of John Locke. We'll see it further. And the government, the function of the government is to remove inconveniences on behalf of people. So that's what the theory of John Locke is. कि भाई जो गवर्नमेंट है, the only function of government is to remove inconveniences, night watchman state. That's all the government should do. And it's just he's utilitarian. Why he's utilitarian? John Locke is utilitarian because he uses state only for its utility. He does not want state per se. State is utilized only for making individual free, and free in trade, freedom of everything, like freedom of movement, everything. Wherever individual liberty, freedom comes, John Locke is called the father. So then he says that only 3 rights are transferred to the state. What are the 3 rights? Not state, government, because John Locke gives theory of government. So we should be very mindful of using the words. We cannot use it here state. In Hobbes we use the word state because he gave the theory of state. He gives the theory of government, that the government is made to remove inconveniences on behalf of people. So he delegates or transfers 3 rights to the government. The first one, right to make law. Then the second one, right to execute law. And third one, right to adjudicate law. So it is basically legislature, executive and judiciary, the separation of power, what we already spoke about. And he says that nature and scope of the contract or the government. The nature is the government is limited in authority, and man transferred only these 3 rights, but right to life, right to liberty and right to property are the absolute right, and no rational man will transfer them. He says that. See, he gives 3 absolute rights. 3 absolute rights to man, whereas Hobbes gives only 1 absolute right, which was Hobbes gave only right to life. That's it. He gave right to life, right to liberty and right to property. Life, liberty and property. And he says that no rational man will transfer these rights. Okay. So right to property, it is used, not only physical property, but in inclusive sense, all the wealth what like people can possess. So sorry, John Locke says that the right to property is the most important right, because no good life can be led without freedom and without property. Property means good life, he says. And this is near to Aristotle's view, where he says that property is source of stability, property is source of virtue, and it makes a person responsible. Hence, the most important work of the state is to protect the property rather than depriving, and state should be night watchman state, he says. Why the state should protect the property? Because property is the original source of good life, and he is the scholar of utilitarianism. So he says that we'll study it further also. He says that लाइफ का मजा ही भाई तब है जब तुम्हारे पास प्रॉपर्टी होगी. एंड गॉड क्रिएटेड मैन जस्ट टू एंजॉय. उसको मजे लेने के लिए भगवान ने बनाया है, और जब तुम उसको प्रॉपर्टी नहीं दोगे तो मजे नहीं ले सकेगा. सो दैट्स वाई राइट टू प्रॉपर्टी शुड बी द एब्सोल्यूट राइट. दैट्स व्हाट John Locke says. He further says that state government manager, there should be like trust and trustees. There should be just trustees. That's all. The property does not belong to the state. State is just night watchman. He is just protecting the property of its citizens, and citizens are enjoying that. And Locke gives right to revolution also to the people if the state does not fulfill its functions. And it's near to the concept of Aristotle's revolution. Here revolution does not mean the bloody revolution. Because John Locke belongs to the time of glorious revolution, his meaning of revolution is constitutional change through peaceful meanings. Completely peaceful change, just as it was done in the time of Glorious Revolution of John Locke, where power was transferred to the parliament without shedding even a drop of blood. And in that sense, he says revolution. Hobbes gives only right to resistance in case state does not protect your life. So he says that John Locke says that revolution is justified when trust acts against the wishes of trustees. Government does not allow legislature to make law. Government does not implement laws made by legislature, or government put people under foreign prince. Then they can definitely bring revolution. So Locke's theory of natural rights, it's we can just summarize it that state of nature, man able to enjoy natural rights and right to life and property. They are non-transferable. Life and property are completely sacrosanct. Right to property is the most important. Why right to property is the most important? Locke's theory of property, we can see. Right to property is most important because purpose of life is happiness, he says. John Locke says purpose of life is happiness. Property is the source of happiness. And God wants man to be happy. Look, that's what his reason is. Purpose of life is happiness. Property is the source of happiness. And God wants man to be happy. So that's why he created apple, milk, meat, and property. That's what John Locke says. And initially, like property, they may be having private holdings, like growth of civilization. Initially, there was common holding, then civilization grew, and there were private properties, there were owners, industries. And John Locke says that those who were industrious, those who were enterprising, those who were hardworking, they got property, they got wealthy, and those who were poor, who were lazy, quarrelsome, fanciful, and daydreamers, they could not have any property, and they become poor. So he says that that's why there is no justification for state to tax money for helping poor. He says that state should not collect tax and give it to the poor. Why? Because poor are poor because they are fanciful, they are quarrelsome, and they are lazy. It's their mistake. If poor are poor, it is not the mistake of those who are wealthy. Those who are wealthy, they are industrious, they are enterprising, and they are hardworking. That's why they are wealthy. So state should not compensate. So it is basically against welfare state. In nutshell, if I say in present context, Locke's theory is against welfare state. Locke's theory is against any welfare measure you say. For example, reservation. For example, like socialist schemes or whatever. So John Locke, in fact, USA uses the argument against North-South debate also. We must be knowing that historical responsibility, even in the negotiation of climate change, the historical responsibility concept comes. So John Locke is completely against it, and that's why US uses this concept that historical responsibility does not exist because those who are poor, they are just due to his own, they are poor due to their own karma. It's basically like that. So Locke puts three limitations over right to property. Right to property is also not absolute. So what are the three restrictions he puts? He says that the property should be acquired by his own labor. No one should deprive other from his property, and right not to spoil the property. So it is also, actually it is not limitation on the right to property. Basically, the limitations also serve the interest of the bourgeois class or capitalist class. How? Because own labor means one should not capture another's property. So that also protect the interest of the bourgeois. Then he says that no one should deprive other from his property, right to property. So it means that a person can have as much property as he wants, and then right not to spoil. That means the business should continue as usual. So there is a famous statement of John Locke that where there is no law, there is no liberty. And in case of Hobbes, the statement was liberty is where law is silent. That is in context of Thomas Hobbes. And in context of John Locke, where there is no law, there is no liberty. That means here the first law means the natural law and not the state-made laws. So if there is no law existing at all, then there is no liberty. It basically means that the human beings they are rational beings and they create civil society, they make the laws just because they know that it is in their own interest. If there is no law is made, then nobody can enjoy the state of nature. But even in the state of nature, they come together and make a civil society, make a, even without the state, they make laws and they make a civil society and live peacefully. So if there is no law, there is no liberty. That means that for liberty, law is required. For liberty, law is required, and law comes out of the reason of the man. That's what John Locke says. And Hobbes only right to self-preservation, but John Locke gives three rights. We already saw. Beside right to life and right to property, right to freedom of religion is also given by John Locke, because he says that no one will follow state in matter of religion, but no toleration toward atheist. And John Locke says that atheist should be thrown out. So here we can say the influence of capitalist class. If capitalist class is closely aligned with church and God, so that's what John Locke will say. John Locke will say that you can follow whatever religion you want, but if you are atheist, you should be thrown out of the state. Because we can say later on Marx also develops the idea to kill the God. So there were basically the fight between the these two streams of thoughts. So assessment of Locke as a thinker, that Locke is scholar of possessive individualism. Definitely we can say that, because he gives overriding power to the individual, and he ultimately just brings the state to the status of night watchman. So he is definitely the scholar of possessive individualism. Then Locke is individualist out and out. So Locke is definitely individualist. We can defend it in many ways. We can see that he provides he provides these rights. For example, right to property, right to life, and all other rights. So in that way, like John Locke gives his theories, and his theories has lasting impact on the liberal constitutions of the world of present day, United States, and then Indian Constitution, UK Constitution. We can see all of them, and that's how these things are developing. But we can see that John Locke is completely favoring individualism, capitalism. So his theories will definitely have repercussions. His theories will definitely lead into more and more exploitation of the masses, those who are not capitalist. Because he is saying that those who are poor, they are just due to their own mistake. So the poor will become poorer and poorer. This is but natural from the theory of the Locke, if it is being practiced. So let us see how these things will develop, and further what influence these theories will have, and how the other scholars comes with the due course of time to counter the theory of John Locke, and how the things proceed. So we hope that you liked our lecture. If you have some doubt, please ask the question in comment box. I will personally answer them. And if you find them useful, please like the videos, please subscribe the channel, and please spread it like a wildfire. Thank you so much for coming to S. Kumar's classroom. Till next class, stay connected and work hard. Thank you so much.